Hey guys, it's Dylan with CT Aquatics, and today we're going to be going over the effects of copper on invertebrates. So copper is a very common medication that's used in the aquarium hobby. It can be used to kill off a lot of parasites such as ick or velvet, and it can be a very good preventative care for when you're acclimating fish or quarantining them to put into your new tank. You don't want to ever put copper into your main display tank though, because it has an effect on invertebrates. So stuff like coral, crabs, and snails will all perish if there's any copper present in the water. So the copper that we're going to be using today is cupramine. So this is a concentrated copper that you add to your aquarium, and it is, like I said, used or designed to help kill parasites such as ick and marine velvet. We're going to be adding this to a bucket with some pulsing xenia, which is generally a type of coral that we don't like, and I don't want it in our tank. So we had a rock that was actually covered in it, and along with some aptasia, which is another invertebrate. And we're just going to show the process of what happens when you put copper in the water and how the coral dies.
So this is a rock that we bought with what was supposed to be star polyp. The star polyp quickly got overtaken by a bunch of this pulsing xenia. This rock is also covered in aptasia. So with all of those issues, we've decided to put it in copper and see what happens. So this is just in some clean salt water right now, and I'm just going to start dropping in some copper. So I started with 10 drops. There's probably a little bit more than a gallon in here. Let me just grab the turkey baster to swirl it around a little bit, give it some flow. So this isn't full copper dose quite yet. Probably need to add another 10 to 20 drops. Some of the coral looks like it's starting to close up just a little bit, but not a whole lot is happening. So let's just put a little bit more in. That should be plenty. And just get the water circulating a bit. So let's move this rock to the center of the bucket, and I'm just going to start swirling it. Really get some flow. Sorry about that glare. Not a whole lot happening. It does look like it's starting to recede though. Smaller amounts of xenia. I don't see any star polyp left on this, but it could be closed up. So we can see here, it's been about 10 and a half minutes. The xenia doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot, although it is receding a little bit. The heads are kind of closing up. It's probably dying. It definitely is dying, but you can also see that there's other pests such as a bristleworm. There's a couple bristleworms in here actually that are getting knocked off. So essentially, this is like a dip to the coral, but it's killing the coral as well. This is just probably going to continue. So it looks like some of these have really started opening up now. The mouths are looking kind of white. These are very clearly dying. And they'll probably start shrinking and melting. Well, some of them are clearly already starting to kind of melt. Yeah, you can see at this point, every time I walk back over after like 30 seconds, it's visibly wiltier. So it's just slowly killing and making the coral melt. You can see little bits of the star polyps now underneath, but they're pretty much entirely overtaken by the xenia. This is probably killing the aptasia as well. That was all over this rock, but you can't see that because it seems like it closed itself up. I'm not sure if this is showing up on camera, but from the start, the xenia were kind of a light pink color, fairly pale. At this point, the stalks have turned relatively brown. The part that kind of pulses turned brown and has gone kind of white and is again just kind of, it's all just kind of drooping and falling over and dying at this point. So we're at the 18-minute mark and we can still see that it's just kind of slowly dying and receding back. Now, this is happening at a little bit of a faster rate than it would happen in your aquarium if you were to add copper to your aquarium. The dose of copper in here is definitely higher than you would add to your aquarium, but this is still the result that would happen to all of your coral and your inverts. Anything other than the fish. Fish can generally handle low doses of copper, and it is a very useful antibacterial, antimicrobial, and it can be used to cure certain diseases such as ick and velvet. But again, this is not something that you want to ever add to your display tank, as it can cause issues with the tank throughout its time. Rock and sand generally will absorb copper, so even if you remove all the copper from the tank, you could potentially have issues with it in the future. There are some ways around it, although it's not recommended. If you were to add copper to your display tank, you can remove most of it and you shouldn't have issues if you run Coopersorb, although I would recommend against this as well, just again because rock can absorb the copper and it can be released out in the future at some point. So you'd either need to continuously run Coopersorb pretty much forever, or if you have to add copper to help with a disease, pull the fish out that's affected, put it in quarantine, and make sure your quarantine tank has copper in it. At this point, you can see that the head of all of the stalks have just pretty much wilted and died off, and the stalks are all starting to bend and flop over. So this is why you do not want to ever put your coral in a tank that has copper, or ever add copper to a tank that has coral. We did this experiment simply because this rock was what we considered pretty much pests. It contained a type of coral that was spread very, very rapidly, the xenia, and we did not want this in our tank to begin with. It came as a hitchhiker on the rock. Unfortunately, we weren't able to save the star polyps either, but with the xenia being essentially a pest in my eyes and all of the aptasia that was on here, we decided to do this experiment. We would not generally want to do this with any of our prized coral. This is something you should not try at home. And again, keep copper out of your display tanks unless you're not planning on putting any coral in it. Coming back with just a quick update. It's been about another 20 minutes or so. Sorry for the focus. You can see that it's pretty much just deflating, melting, and withering away. This is definitely not going to come back. Do not put your coral in copper.
Okay, so as you can see from the video, the coral very quickly just shriveled up and kind of died back. So that was a lot faster because of how much copper we put into the water. But even trace amounts of copper can cause this effect on your invertebrates and have them shrivel up like you saw. It just might take a little bit longer than in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.
If you like our content, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications to join us on our journey through the sea.